invite you to listen to our prelude music and let it draw you into the spirit of worship as we begin our service together. The song is American Tune by singer-songwriter Paul Simon. The lyrics express both despair and hope for this country. We come in the age's most uncertain hours and sing an American tune.
Many is the time I've been mistaken, and many times confused. Yes, and I've often felt forsaken and certainly misused. Oh, but I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm just weary to my bones. Still, you don't expect to be bright and bon vivant so far away from home, so far away from home. Well, I don't know a soul who's not been battered. I don't have a friend who feels at ease. And I don't know a dream that's not been shattered or driven to its knees. Oh, but it's all right. It's all right. For we've lived so well, so long. Still, when I think of the road we're traveling on, I wonder what's gone wrong. I can't help it, I wonder what's gone wrong. And I dreamed I was dying. I dreamed that my soul rose unexpectedly, and looking back down at me, smiled reassuringly. And I dreamed I was flying, and high up above, my eyes could clearly see the Statue of Liberty sailing away to sea. And I dreamed I was flying. Well, we come on the ship they call the Mayflower. We come on the ship that sails the moon. And we come in the age's most uncertain hour and sing an American tune. Oh, and it's all right. It's all right, it's all right. You can't be forever blessed. Still, tomorrow's gonna be another working day, and I'm trying to get some rest. That's all, I'm just trying to get some rest.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood of Valley Unitarian Universalist congregation. I'm not Fred Rogers, this is not PBS, but I am Fred Wooden, and this is Valley Unitarian Universalist congregation. I serve as the interim minister, and my invitation is to all of you, old members, new members, member or visitor, backslider or devoted pillar, to be part of the neighborhood this July 4th. Each week, we renew ourselves as a community and begin our time together by lighting the chalice, a symbol of Unitarian Universalism everywhere. So I'm going to invite Ken St. John. Come on up here, Ken, who is my partner in crime today as he leads us in lighting the chalice.
Good morning, everyone. And surprise, as of right now, I'm now a worship associate. And as I'm very happy to be the lay presence in the actual pulpit, in the actual sanctuary, to say, welcome to Unitarian Universalist Congregation's live stream Sunday service. Whoops, I jumped ahead. Let's read together our chalice lighting words. We kindle this flame, symbol of our faith, for the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of love that calls us to work for justice.
Thanks, Ken. We will now hear from our wonderful Director of Faith Formation, Marcy Bodwin, as she leads us in a time for all ages.
Good morning. I'm Marcy Bodwin, the Director of Faith Formation Ministry here at Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation. If you have any children in your household today, now is the time to call them in front of your device for our Time for All Ages. The Pastoral Care Associate this week is Randy. Universalist Congregation. If you have any children in your household today, now is the time to call them in front of your device for our Time for All Ages. The Pastoral Care Associate this week is Randy Galbraith. You can reach them using email at pastoralcare@vuu.org, or you can use the chat feature here in Zoom. The names are alphabetical, and you can look for Randy Galbraith's name there. Please remember that the chat is restricted during the prayer meditation and also the sermon. Any other time you can post or chat your joys and concerns. So our book today, as we reflect upon the birth of these United States of America, a country that was supposed to be a more perfect union, but as Reverend Wooden tells us, we missed it by that much. Today's book reminds us that things don't always turn out the way we plan. And sometimes that frustrating process of translating ideas into reality takes perseverance and creativity. Enjoy the book. The Most Magnificent Thing by Ashley Spires. This is a regular girl and her best friend in the whole world. They do all kinds of things together. They race, they eat, they explore, they relax. She makes things. He unmakes things. One day, the girl had a wonderful idea. She is going to make the most magnificent thing. She knows just how it will look. She knows just how it will work. All she has to do is make it. And she makes things all the time. Easy peasy. First, she hires an assistant. Next, they gather their supplies. They set up somewhere out of the way and get to work. The girl tinkers and hammers and measures while her assistant pounces and growls and chews. When she is finished, she steps back to admire her work. She walks around one side. Her assistant examines the other side. It doesn't look right to her. Her assistant picks it up and gives it a shake. It doesn't feel right either. They are shocked to discover that this thing is not magnificent or good. It isn't even kind of sort of okay. It's all wrong. The girl tosses it aside and gives it another go. She smooths and wrenches and fiddles. Her assistant circles and tugs and wags. When she is finished, she stands up and takes a long look at it. Her assistant gives it a nudge with his paw. The thing is still wrong. She decides to try again. The girl saws and glues and adjusts. She stands and examines and stares. She twists and tweaks and fastens. She fixes and straightens and studies. She tries all different ways to make it better. She makes it square. She makes it round. She gives it legs. She adds antenna. She makes it fuzzy. She makes it long, short, rough, smooth, big, small. One even smells of stinky cheese. But none of them are magnificent. Her hard work attracts a few admirers, but they don't understand. They can't see the magnificent thing that she has in her mind. And she gets mad. The angrier she gets, the faster she works. She smashes pieces into shape. She jams parts together. She pummels the little bits in. Her hands feel too big to work, and her brain is too full of all the not right things. If only the thing would just work. Crunch. The pain starts in her finger. It rushes up to her brain and she explodes. It is not her finest moment. I'm no good at this. I quit. Her assistant suggests a walk. It's not much help at first. But before long, she starts to feel different. Bit by bit, the mad gets pushed out of her head. As they stroll along, she comes across the first wrong thing she made. The bad feelings are about to start all over again, but then she notices something surprising. There are some parts of the wrong things that are really quite right. The bolts on one, the shape of another, the wheel-to-seat ratio of the next. There are all sorts of parts that she likes. By the time she reaches the end of the trail, she finally knows how to make the thing magnificent. She gets to work. She works carefully and slowly, tinkering, hammering, twisting, fiddling, gluing, painting. Her assistant makes sure there are no distractions. This is the perfect thing to ward off bears. This will stop that leak. This one's all wet. The afternoon fades into evening. Finally, she finishes. She alerts her assistant. The pair take a good long look. It leans a little to the left, and it's a bit heavier than expected. The color could use a bit of work too, but it's just what she wanted. They climb aboard and take it for a spin. They are not disappointed. It really is the most magnificent thing.
Thank you, Marcy. Our first hymn this morning is Wo Ya Ya, number 1020 in our teal hymnal. This country has been on a journey since its birth, over 240 years ago now. We as a country don't always know where we're going. We do know that the way may be muddy and rough, but we have faith that we will get there, to a place of living up to our ideals. Please join in singing, or at least humming along, to the song Wo Ya Ya.
We are going, Heaven knows where we are going, but we know we will. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going. We know we're there. We will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. But we know we will. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going. We know we're there. We will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going. We'll know we're there. Oh yeah, yeah. 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 We'll know we're there.
That was lovely. All right, now it's time to say, welcome to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation's live stream Sunday service. Though this is my first time serving as a worship associate, it's probably not the first time you've heard me say the word welcome. If you worshiped with us back in the day, you may remember having me and the rest of the ushering team personally greeting you at the door as you arrived. A warm welcome from Evan, a big hug from Pat, Melanie's cheerful smile. I miss them all. And while you can see me now, I'm not seeing your face looking back, which is just not the same for me. But for now, you may be participating in this live Zoom session, or you may be viewing the recording on YouTube. We are glad you tuned in. You may be camera on, sharing your facial expressions and singing along with the hymns. Or you may be video mute, relaxing in your pajamas and sipping on a breakfast cocktail. Either way, you are all welcome here. And from wherever you are in the wide connected world, welcome to VUU, where the congregating is virtual, but the worship is real. And an especially sincere welcome to anyone who is with us for the first time today. Right after the service, you will be invited to join a breakout room where we can visit together in small random groups. You may also remain in the main room to chat with the Reverend himself by simply declining the breakout invitation. Happy Independence Day, everyone. No matter how kooky politics can be, I can still think of plenty of reasons to be proud to be an American and willing to continue the effort to progress towards our highest American ideals. Freedom of religion is one ideal that I think we've done relatively well with. Countless faith traditions exist in the US today. I have a youth-oriented book titled The Usborne Book of World Religions. In it, there are 6 chapters covering the major religions, then another chapter titled Some Other Religions, and just before the glossary and index, there's 2 pages dedicated to nonconformist groups. Among the nonconformists are the religion of my youth, Christian Science, Mormon, which was my wife Janet's childhood church, and Unitarian. No mention of Universalists at all. The religions that have influenced my life the most, and each gets just 1 paragraph, scarcely even a footnote. But another thing that these 3 have in common is that I consider them all to be American religions. Christian Science was founded in Massachusetts in the late 1800s and is headquartered at the Mother Church in Boston. The Mormon faith, if I remember my South Park episodes correctly, was dreamt up in the backwoods of upstate New York, also in the 1800s, and migrated its way to settle in Salt Lake City, Utah. Well, it's true that Unitarianism and Universalism were each invented in Europe. They didn't always feel welcome there. And in the late 1700s, they each established roots in the original 13 colonies, getting in on the ground floor of a promising new nation, each growing and evolving together to the present. And I believe the merger of U and U into UU in 1961 was an all-American event, with Boston as its motherland too. Not only do I claim UU as an all-American religion, I think it is the most American religion. In reading our 7 principles is like reviewing the nation's founding documents. Foremost is number 5, which says flat out, we are a democracy, just like the USA. Principle number 4 covers the promise of freedom of religion and comes with responsibility. Now I like to paraphrase our first principle with, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, that they are endowed with certain unalienable rights, that among these are inherent worth and dignity. And I like to compare the values in number 2 with the trinity of truth, justice, and the American way, which is actually from a Superman comic book, but it works for me. Now, our nation has not had a perfect record in upholding these values, even less so the goals of world peace and respect for the interdependent web of all existence. But to me, they are all true American ideals, and progress can be made towards fulfilling them. So I hope you too are proud to call yourself an American, and that you are able to celebrate this Independence Day with joy.
Virtual worship is tough enough, really. But virtual offerings are even harder. You know, if you were here in the room, the plate would come by and it's really hard just to let it go. So you feel like you gotta put something in, but you're at home. You don't have to put anything in, no one's watching. And what's worse, this is not like PBS. I don't have any coffee cups, coffee table books, DVDs, things to sweeten the pot that would make you more likely to give. I have nothing to make you give to the union. But I do know something. If you do give, and many of you do, It is the most productive way you spent your money this week, because you know that those dollars are making this happen, and they're making the other things we do happen even when you're not here. The coming of age program, our help, our work with iHelp. So I'm saying, think about it, that it's worth the click, the text, the email, the phone call. Go, do it. Do it now. And you will have made a difference in the world. While most Unitarian Universalists will say that it is the sermon they come for, it is the rest of the service that makes it worship and not just a lecture. It's the rest of the service that makes it worth it. And this part is where the worth happens. We call it centering, a word that tries to encompass the wide range of beliefs that runs from unvarnished atheism to liberal Christianity, neo-pagans, Buddhists, and other spiritual outliers. Three things comprise our time of centering: silence, music, words. They are the ingredients that make this a worship service. And the least of these are words. And so I invite you to silence your mind. Put it to one side. Let go of the world out there for a few moments. Remember that you are breathing, that your heart is beating. And then let the music become your silence. Thank you, Sue Keene, a member of this congregation, who gives many gifts, including her capacity to make music. A few words that would pass muster as prayer in some places. I'm going to lift up Anne Lamott, a writer of engaging books, and as it so happens, a college classmate of my wife, who at some point said all prayer comes down to three things: help, thanks, wow. I actually think there's a fourth, oops. But all four are confessions of the sort, by which I mean letting your guard down. That's not easy in a world that often takes advantage of folks when they let their guard down. But here, in this little world of this community on Sunday morning, you can. Whoever you are, whatever burdens you carry, they can be set down for a moment. The knapsack of regret or shame or loss or fear can come off your back for a moment, but only if you're willing to admit you have one. That's a lot easier when you can see that everyone else has one too. They do. I do. So lay down your burden for a while. And whatever that is, know it. Know that you are not the burden. It is not who you are. It is what you carry. That the loss, the sorrow, the pain, and the shame can be put to one side, and you will be you. Now, for some, it's hard to feel that way. And you may have to start your prayer by saying, oops. It's okay, we all do that. And if you're trying and you find it hard to feel that release, you can say help. And maybe someone will stand there and say, yeah, let's do this together. And even if you get there for only a second, a moment when you feel relieved, that's worth saying thanks. And if you didn't realize you were carrying something at all, or that you've never felt that moment until today, that's when you say, wow. Oops. Help. Thanks. Wow. Amen.
Our special music is a beautiful rendition of Lift Every Voice and Sing by the Stanford Talisman Choir. This song was written in 1900 by African-American James Weldon Johnson as a poem, and then set to music by his brother. It's a hymn that expresses a hope that we can reach an acknowledgement and acceptance of our past as we work together to build a better, stronger future in this country. Long known as the Black National Anthem, as of this June, it is now our official national hymn. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let this music touch your spirit and deepen our worship together.
Civil rights activist James Weldon Johnson wrote Lift Every Voice and Sing as a poem, which was set to music by his brother John Roseman Johnson in 1899. The song is now known as the Black National Anthem in America. It is a protest, a hymn, and a prayer of profound significance for our people. We lift every voice and sing to express ourselves. We lift every voice to show that we have strength in numbers and we will not be silent. We lift every voice and sing to be lifted, liberated, and free.
Freedom, the power to determine action without restraint. Freedom, the absence of or release from ties, obligations, or restrictions. Freedom, the ease or facility of movement or action, freedom, frankness or boldness in manner or speech, freedom, a political right. Until we are all free, none of us is free. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the roaring sea. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chasing rod. Those in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place, come to our Father's side. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary ears, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever in the path we pray. Safe from the places of heaven,
despite the pandemic, I have not binged. In fact, I do not binge, by which I mean watching television in long segments, one episode after another. I do nibble, though. When I stumbled on Facebook videos a few months ago, suddenly I was hooked. These are short videos, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, on a bewildering array of topics, TED Talk summaries, recipes, songs, stand-up comics. And what got my attention last week, Olympic trials. I was taken in by the women's archery trials. Now, why there is a women's archery team and a men's archery team, and they're not the same team, I don't understand. I mean, it's archery, people, but that's the way it is. And I watched them. And what was fascinating was the amount of concentration these women brought to the task. They have these fancy compound counterweighted bows, and they pull the string back right up against their cheek, literally against their cheek, and stand there like a Zen monk. And then when the moment was just right, release the arrow. Many meters away, the arrows struck, always close to the center, but never dead center. Clearly, these are the best in their field, and yet none that I watched hit the bullseye. And all I could think of when they did that was, missed it by that much. Now, it is a terrible thing to waste one's mind, as Dan Quayle infamously said. But if I've wasted my mind, it's been on the television of my youth. And if it were possible, I would binge watch a program called Get Smart, which was a parody of secret agent films like James Bond, except that Maxwell Smart, the secret agent, was clueless and clumsy and yet cocky as blazes. And what made me think of that phrase was that every time he messed up, he shot the wrong fellow, pushed the wrong button, he would say, missed it by that much. Now, what has this to do with the 4th of July? I'm so glad you asked. Back in 1976, I was in seminary and I took a course on religion and the American Revolution and happened across the correspondence between John Adams and his wife, Abigail, a remarkable correspondence of a remarkable marriage. In his letter of early July 1776, he writes, "This will cement the union. I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations." He means fireworks. "From one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward forevermore." Does he sound like he's predicting the future? Wait a minute. He goes on. July 2nd of July 2nd, 1776 will be the most memorable day in the history of America. You heard me right. He believed July 2nd was the birthday of America. Missed it by that much. But wait a second, was he wrong? The resolution that really made a difference, that really was adopted on July the 2nd. So why do we call it July the 4th? Well, between the resolution and July 4th, they had to finalize the document we have come to call the Declaration of Independence. That happened to be finished on July the 4th, which was when the document was published. So which is our Independence Day? The day they said we were independent or the day we heard we were independent? Maybe we missed it by that much. Some years ago, I decided to try to head off dementia by exercising my brain more, and one way was to memorize things. And today I can boast, if I wish to, of memorizing Shakespeare's sonnets, poems, Psalms, even in Hebrew, 2/3 of the first book of Paradise Lost, which nobody wants to read, part of Dickens' Christmas Carol, which everybody loves, Dr. King's 1963 address, the Gettysburg Address, and yes, the Declaration of Independence. Now, when you memorize something, you notice things because you're repeating them all the time. For example, the sentences of the Declaration are really, really long. That was the style back then. And the most famous part to all of us, the self-evident truths, are not a sentence unto themselves, but a clause in the part of a larger sentence that amounts to a theory of government, that government exists to secure the rights of citizens. And when it fails to do that, the people have a right to change it. That's different from where they came from in Britain, because that's where the divine right of kings proceeded. So they were offering a different idea of government. And that's the revolutionary part of the document. The all men being created equal is just one part of that argument. In fact, the equal part is just a step toward the conclusion that it was okay to tear down one government if it wasn't working. The founders, as we now call them, needed, in essence, to justify overthrowing the British government, which meant they had to undo the assumptions of government back in Britain. I guess what I'm saying is that maybe equality and rights were rationales more than they were convictions. Sure, there was a lot of philosophical talk about human rights floating around back then, but the idea that all people were equal was never more than a theory, a dream, a concept. From the Declaration of Independence, it took 50 years to enfranchise white men, whether they owned real estate or not. It took another 50 years to enfranchise Black men, at least by law, if not in practice. Another 50 to enfranchise women, and still a few more to enfranchise the indigenous inhabitants themselves. So if values are not what we say unless we practice them, can we really say that we have believed in equality? I'm not sure we can. There's a poem by Langston Hughes, one I have memorized, that speaks exactly to that distance between what we say and what we do. He creates a dialogue between a patriotic voice and a skeptic, writing from the skeptic's voice. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. And some lines later, he breaks out and says, "Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet, and yet must be, the land where every man is free, the land that's mine, the poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me who made America." And you'll notice that Hughes didn't include women. So were the founders lying when they said all men are created equal? Well, perhaps the best way to approach that question is to look at our own values and our own practices, our self-evident truths, which you brought into wonderful clarity earlier, Ken. The 7 principles that you've heard mentioned: inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are part. No one disbelieves these good ideas. Certainly no Unitarian Universalist. But have we lived up to them? Not entirely. We too have missed it by that much. Now, back in seminary, we learned that the Hebrew word for sin comes from a verb that describes an archer missing the target, like those archers. Sin means missing the mark. And that made me curious. Those women shooting arrows and missing the bullseye were not trying to miss the bullseye. They were not deliberately missing it. They weren't trying to do anything bad. Maxwell Smart was not trying to be bad at being a secret agent, but that was the impact. Whether we intend to miss the mark or not, we do. Good intentions do not result in good outcomes alone. Now, for some time, I've been saying, not to you, but to my colleagues in clergy life, that we Unitarian Universalists need a doctrine of sin. If there's anything that doesn't sound Unitarian Universalist, sin sounds like the least UU thing there could be. But I think this is a good thing to consider, and this missing the mark part makes the most sense. There is no question that human beings mess up. Some people are nasty, some are heartless, some are desperate, some are fearful, but all of us, no matter what reason, are given to moments of anger, moments of thoughtlessness, moments of indifference, of fearful reactions. No matter how hard we try, we will stumble, forget, fail, react. We will all miss the mark. And that's because we have freedom of choice. Wait, what good is freedom of choice if you can't make the wrong choice? If all you can make is the right choice, you have no freedom. One cannot have moral freedom and not miss the mark. And that includes the founders. So I think they were not lying. They were not as good as their vision. But who could have been? If they fell short, they did so personally and in their political choices, but as humans, how could they do anything other than fall short? And it seems all the worse because the goal they set was so high. They fell way short. And that, ironically, is the greatest gift we have from them and the Declaration. On my way to the hospital to visit parishioners in my Brooklyn church long ago, I have to pass the campus of Long Island University. This was a school serving local residents, most of them of modest means, most of them non-white. And so there were quotations carved in the walls to inspire them to do their work, to accomplish and succeed. And one of them was a great quotation from the great Benjamin Mays, president of Morehouse College, mentor to people like Martin Luther King. What was carved on the wall was this: it must be borne in mind, he said, that the tragedy of life does not lie in not reaching your goal. The tragedy of life lies in having no goal to reach. It isn't a calamity to die with dreams unfulfilled, but it is a calamity not to dream. Not failure, but low aim is sin. Think about that. Failure to try is worse than failing to succeed. Low aim. And I'll give the Declaration credit, whether they meant it or not, whether they knew it or not. That's a really high aim. It's right up there. Those self-evident truths have yet to be reached. And the fact that we haven't may be our struggle, but it is not our sin unless we stop trying. Far greater sin would be to give up the claim on those self-evident truths, not staking our faith on those principles, not stating your vision and goals as a congregation. It isn't a disgrace not to reach the stars, said Mays, but it is a disgrace to have no stars to reach for. We often hear words about the American dream. What they say, and what we sometimes hear is owning your own home. That's not high enough for me. Land of opportunity, that's good, but that's not high enough for me. The chance to get rich, fine, but that's not high enough for me. So on July 4th, I do not think on those things. And I don't think on what we have accomplished, but what we have yet to accomplish. I think it was Lincoln who boldly took the Declaration forward in his Gettysburg Address and claimed that it was about government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It was Emma Lazarus who, when she saw the Statue of Liberty, wrote, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." That's a star worth pursuing. And Langston Hughes, in that same poem, saying that America never has been America, and yet this oath I swear, America will be. America, a place to which I am loyal. The part that makes me glad is not a fact, but a hope. Not a memory of what was, but a dream of what could be. And every time we miss the mark, we do miss. And doesn't it seem we've done a lot of missing in recent years, but the mark is still there to be sought. The star is still there to hitch our wagon. The founders saw a star, and maybe like those wise men of the Nativity said, let's go that way. And of course, they didn't reach it. And they fell short, far short. And that may be the best any one of us can expect of ourselves. But we can hope that if we're going to fall short, at least we fall in the direction of the star. That we don't fall back, but we go forward. Even if we land on our face, we go that way, pointing to it for those who are following behind us. No, I'm not shying away from the real facts that are around us, the entrenched failures of racism and classism and so much more, the false idols of wealth and power that have often justified those entrenched failures as worthwhile compromises, and the never-ending audacity of elected persons, as Walt Whitman called them. I'm not denying the opiates and bromides that come forth from our media all the time, modern bread and circuses that distract us from the realities and the challenges. These are very real. And together they can be almost overwhelming. And all the more reason why we need a star. Or we would give up and just look after number one, right? Those who clamor to go back to something else are saying, that star wasn't worth it. It's useless. Let's keep what we have, lest we lose it. You're just going to fail, so why even try? Look after number one, like I said. That's what America is about. You making your life happen for you, and the devil take the hindmost, as we used to say. Well, you may wish to do that, but that's not America. That's not the America of the Declaration, of the Gettysburg Address, the Statue of Liberty, Dr. King. That America is about a star. The one named liberty and justice for all. That is the America that never has been yet and yet must be, as Langston Hughes said. Let me give you the last words of that poem, because they say better than I could what I hope for. The land where everyone is free. The land that's mine, the poor man's Indians, the Negroes, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain, must bring back our mighty dream again. Oh yes, I say it plain, America never was America to me, and yet this oath I swear, America will be. Perhaps not today, not in my day, someday. And maybe that day will be the one my grandson will see. And so I believe in the star. And so should you. Happy July 4th to all of us. And to all the July 4ths ahead. We will continue to miss it by that much every day, but one day we will get there. And so may it be. Gee, Rebecca, would you like to tell us about our closing hymn?
Thank you, Fred. Our closing song is again, America the Beautiful, but sung by members of the Santa Monica UU Choir. It is a slightly different version, but I hope you can still appreciate this as a song of hope for the future of our country. And crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
A great American patriot, Paul Robeson, once said, "Sorrow will one day turn to joy. All that breaks the heart and oppresses the soul will one day give place to peace and understanding, and everyone will be free." That's what it means to believe in America, in what it wishes to be. And as long as we do that, we should be proud. Proud of who we are and who we can become. And now I'm going to ask Ken St. John to bring our worship to a close as we extinguish the chalice.
Thank you. All right, please read along out loud with me these words. Though we extinguish the chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again. That concludes our service today. Please remain online with us to join a small group breakout session, or ignore the invitation and stay in the main room to visit with the minister and I and me. Either way, you'll finally be allowed to unmute yourself and join in the conversation. But wherever you go next, go in peace. Just stay up here. Oh, we gotta put your video on.